Oh, narcissism, yeah. That's self-love or self-attention or self-absorption. And it can be particularly a 1-2 emphasis. I have the right to do what I want and to enjoy what I enjoy. And it may be fed also by the other fire things if they are, if you're identified with them, with 1 and 2. Like the I am God 1, 9, and 112 things may be extremely narcissistic, very self-absorbed, and the 1, 5 mixtures can also do that, or the 5, 9, or the 5, 12. The sense of focus back in on the self, but the root of it would be 1 and 2, backed up if they're mixed in by 5 and 9 and 12.
What about antisocial?
Yeah, antisocial can sometimes have a 1-2 basis too. I have a right to do what I want, but there has to be some kind of interpersonal thing there where there's problems with the interpersonal area, but it is an issue. So they're struggling against other people. They want others, and they feel threatened by them, and so they're fighting them and putting them down or retreating from them. So that has to be a mixture.
Found a lot of 6 involved in that too. The Virgo types that want to retire and keep to themselves.
Yeah, if there's just the Virgo Capricorn, the work emphasis, then it may be simply that they really just want to focus on their sense of accomplishment and they don't want to deal with relationships. But that wouldn't be antisocial so much as just workaholic, just oriented towards their own accomplishment, but not opposed to people. If there's a real antisocial, against people theme, why it has to be because they want it and they're fighting it, or they're afraid of it.
Is the Aries Libra strong in the chart? Is that a major conflict as far as self and...
Very often it is. The Aries side of the nature says, I do what I want to do, and the Libra side says, but I need other people. So it is often experienced as a conflict to be able to have room in the life for both. And yet all of these can be integrated if we understand and work with them intelligently. Then I was going to say something about the suicide. Suicide, in some form, you have to have a self against self. You will almost always, I don't know, maybe I've seen one case that it wasn't very clear and obvious, where there was some kind of number 1 conflict with number 1. Now that could be Mars in any kind of conflict aspect to anything in or ruling the first house. This is an example of the 1 against 1. Or any ruler of the first house in conflict aspect to any other ruler of the first house. Or something in Aries in conflict to something in or ruling the first house. So some kind of 1 against 1, a self against self, a self-destruct kind of thing. And it also sometimes will be amplified by 1-4, 1-8, and 1-12. Because water is always closure, the end of the chapter, finish. So that's personal action leading to the end, death in this case. So personal action that produces your own end. So those are common factors in suicide, the 1 against 1 in some form, and 1-4, 1-8, 1-12. You will sometimes get it also with 1-10, where it's like your action is against the law, against the power of the universe, and you take that power and use it against yourself. So there are lots of different possibilities, but normally we'll find the 1 against 1 in some form.
I have a question on the dissociative
Right.
under multiple personality.
Mm-hmm.
Would psychic mediums fit in there at all, or is that a disorder, or how do you,
Yes,
how do you know if
there it
it's
depends
real?
on your belief system. The traditional materialistic psychology, psychiatry, might very well class psychic mediums as dissociative personalities or multiple personalities. And when the trance medium, for instance, where someone else comes through and speaks through this person, they would consider that an example of that. Mm-hmm.
What do you see in the charts of?
Some of the psychics we've looked at already, those 2 sheets of psychics, some of them were into trance, and you will usually find the heavy air water, where they are able to channel the psychic ability into consciousness and communicate it. And the air has the ability to detach, remember, to back away and look at the broad perspective. It's really literally putting air, space between you and the situation, seeing the whole perspective and being able to understand it. So it's a very valuable ability if it isn't overdone. So you just live in your head and don't do anything. And yeah, do you have a question?
What sign combinations or houses would you see with addictive behaviors? Weight, drugs?
Yeah, those are the fixed. We talked about those already. The
Yeah.
fixed emphasis, 2, 8 especially. Because 2 is your ability to enjoy the world, and 8 is your ability to master your appetites. And the person often will swing from excesses to asceticism in their attempt to get control.
So like bulimia, people who eat
Uh-huh.
too much and purge, binging, all that.
Yeah, that's a 2-8 kind of thing. And it, of course, you can add more excesses to anything if you add more fire, which tends to keep on, going further. I want, whatever I'm doing, I want to do it again, do more. And also letter 12 can add excesses to anything, because if you're looking for the absolute, you can never have enough, so you're going to overdo it, whatever it is. And until you find a variety of ways you can satisfy that need, and then you don't have to overdo one of them. So one of the things I always suggest if people are into real troubles with sensual overindulgence is to find a variety of outlets. If everything is going into eating, they're going to overeat. If everything is going into drinking, all their satisfactions, or sex or anything else, they're going to overdo it. So if they have many different sources of pleasure, then they're less likely to be obsessive about one.
I think that's excellent advice. I do.
Yeah.
It seems to really fit very well.
And the more they can do active forms of pleasure also, if they're overdoing passive intake types of pleasure, active forms of creating beauty are one of the best outlets, like dancing, gardening, swimming, gymnastics. These are action and beauty combined, and they help to counteract too much of the passive indulgences. And then if the major problem is a security issue, an emotional security issue, if letter 4 is involved, this also can compound the problem and make it more difficult to handle. Because if it's really just pure pleasure, when it stops being pleasurable, you stop doing it. But if you're eating, for instance, for emotional security, or drinking, or sexing, or anything else, and that activity is not going to give you emotional security, and so you can never do enough, and you keep doing more and more and more. So it is a definitely complicating factor if letter 4 is part of the picture. It's not just a 2-8, for instance. Or if your ego is involved with letter 5, your power in the world is involved with letter 5. These all add their complications and tend to make it more excessive.
With passive aggressive,
Yeah, that's another good one. That kind of hard to give any specific things associated with it, but it's basically a person who is holding back, is inhibiting their power in some form. So it can be any kind of water, earth, inhibiting the fire. That it comes out in sneaky ways. Maritha had an amusing example of that from one of our earlier seminars. One of the people who came to the seminar was a middle-aged lady, and she felt, I think, a little bit insecure because she wasn't probably quite as bright as some of the other people in the seminar. She didn't have any educational background to speak of. And Maritha did her share of the teaching. This is the first year she hasn't been here doing a lot of the teaching, and she just took this new job in San Diego. And so at the end of the seminar, Maritha took this lady to the plane. And on the way to the plane, this lady says, "You remind me so much of my daughter." Now, that sounds like the start of a nice compliment. And then she went on, "I never could understand her." That's passive-aggressive. Subtle put-down. And then one more active form of it is the person who breaks something that you really treasure, and they're horrified, they're just mortified, they're just so embarrassed, they're so sorry, this was just an accident. Or they lose something that you really valued. They come consistently late to appointments. And those are passive-aggressive kinds of activities.